My name is David Parker. I live in a small town in Pennsylvania, a quiet place where everyone knows each other. I've lived here my whole life, seen this town grow and change, but nothing could have prepared me for what was about to happen. It all started on a cold autumn evening. I was returning home after a shift at the local run, the only one in town. The sun had set a long time ago, and the streets were illuminated by the soft light of lanterns. The air was cool, and the leaves rustled under my feet as I walked. As I turned onto my street, I noticed a figure standing at the end of the block. It was too dark to make out any details, but something about the way the person stood there, motionless, gave me goosebumps. I quickened my pace, trying to get home as soon as possible. When I finally reached my house, I looked back. The figure disappeared. I tried to shake off my anxiety and went inside, closing the door behind me. I had no idea that this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to find a note slipped under my front door. It was an ordinary piece of paper, but the message was eerie. "I'm watching you." I looked around the street through the window, but I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Trying to dismiss it as a prank, I went about my day, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Over the next few days, I noticed little signs that someone had been near my house. Footprints on the ground near the window, a faint smell of cigarette smoke near the front door. I reported it to the police, but they found no evidence and assumed it was probably kids' pranks. One evening, when I was closing the pub, a man came into it. He was tall, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. He ordered a coffee and sat down in the corner, keeping his eyes on me. There was something unpleasant, cold about him that made me nervous. After he left, I found another note in my car. "You won't hide from me, David." I'm now officially freaked out. I went to the police again, but without concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. They advised me to be careful and call them if I notice anything suspicious. A week passed without incident, and I began to think that maybe it was over. But one night, as I was walking home, I felt someone following me. I looked around and saw the same man from the corner walking in the distance. I quickened my pace, but so did he. My heart was pounding as I switched to running. I heard his footsteps approaching. When I finally reached my front door, I heard his voice for the first time. "You can't run forever." I slammed the door and called the police. They arrived quickly, but found no sign of the man. They suggested installing surveillance cameras around my house, which I did the next day. The cameras gave a certain sense of security, but it was shattered when I reviewed the footage one morning. There he was. A man stood just outside my bedroom window looking in. He stood there for hours, not moving, just watching. I showed the tape to the police, and they finally took me seriously. They began to patrol my street more often and advised me to temporarily live with a friend. I took their advice and stayed with my friend Mark, who lived on the other side of town. A few days later, I decided to check my house. As I approached, I saw a figure inside. My heart fluttered when I realized it was him. I called the police, but I knew they wouldn't be there in time. Gathering all my courage, I decided to face him. I flew in the door and found him in the living room. He turned to face me, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "You should have stayed away, David." Before I could react, he pounced on me. We fought, knocking over furniture and breaking lamps. He was stronger than I expected. He pinned me to the ground, his arms around my throat. I was about to pass out when suddenly I heard sirens. He loosened his grip and fled through the back door just as the police arrived. They chased after him but lost him in the woods behind my house. They assured me they would do everything they could to catch him, but I knew he would be back. The police increased patrols and I moved back in with Mark for safety, but I couldn't just sit and wait. I began my own investigation, trying to find out who this man was and why he was after me. I spent hours looking through old newspapers and internet articles looking for any clue. And I found her, an article about a man named John Sullivan who was released from prison a few months ago. He was convicted of stalking and attempted murder. I realized with horror that John Sullivan was the man who had been stalking me, but why me? I dug deeper and found an old article about my father. He was a detective and put Sullivan behind bars years ago. This was his revenge. I reported this information to the police, and they finally had enough evidence to issue an arrest warrant, but finding him was another matter. He disappeared without a trace. Days turned into weeks, and I began to feel a false sense of security. But one night I woke up to find him standing at the foot of my bed. "Time to end this, David." I grabbed the bat I kept by the bed and hit him. He dodged and knocked me down. We fought, and I managed to escape by running into the living room. He followed me and we continued our struggle. When he almost beat me, the police burst into the house. They watched my house, waiting for his move. They arrested him and took him away, and I was finally relieved. John Sullivan was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The nightmare is over, but the scars remain. Several months have passed. Life was returning to normal, but suddenly everything changed. One morning I woke up to a knock on the door. It was the police. They informed me that John Sullivan had escaped from prison. My heart was beating like crazy. The police advised me to be careful and move to a safe place. I immediately packed my things and went to a hotel where no one knew me. I was in constant fear at the hotel. Every sound made me shudder. Every stranger seemed suspicious. The police assured me they were doing everything they could to find Sullivan, but I knew they wouldn't stop until they found me. A week later, I found a note under my hotel room door. "I know where you are, David." Panic gripped me. He found me even here. I didn't know how long I could endure this fear. I contacted a private investigator named Jackson Riley. I told him about my situation and he agreed to help. Jackson was an ex-cop, and I hoped his experience would help find Sullivan before he found me. Jackson began an investigation. He looked at all the possible tracks, examined the places where Sullivan could be hiding. But the traces were cold. Every time we thought we found something, it turned out to be a false lead. One evening, Jackson reported that he had received a tip about Sullivan's location. We went to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The police were ready to arrest. We were waiting in ambush when suddenly we heard a noise. Sullivan entered the compound and the police immediately took action. They surrounded him and ordered him to surrender. But Sullivan didn't give up without a fight. A firefight ensued and I hid behind the wall, keeping my head down. The police were able to injure Sullivan and take him into custody. When I came out of my hiding place, I saw him being put into a police car, bloodied and bound. It was the end, but the fear was still with me. I decided to leave the city. I moved to another state, changed my name, and started a new life. But every time I heard footsteps behind me or saw an unfamiliar face in the crowd, I broke out in a cold sweat. A few months later, I received a message on a new phone. "You think you can hide, David?" It was Sullivan. He found me again. My terror returned with renewed force. I contacted the Witness Protection Program. They helped me change my identity and provided me with a new place to live. But even under protection, I couldn't completely shake off the fear. One evening, I heard a noise in my new house. I took a kitchen knife and quietly went to check. In the darkness, I saw a silhouette. It was Sullivan. He stood in the doorway, his eyes shining with an ominous light. He lunged at me, and we were once again in a life-and-death struggle. I stabbed him, but he was stronger. We fell to the floor, and I felt his hands tighten around my throat again. I gathered all my strength and pushed him away from me. He lost his balance and fell, hitting his head on the edge of the table. He lay still, and I decided to come closer. Sullivan was dead. The nightmare is finally over. The police arrived quickly. They confirmed Sullivan's death and recorded it as self-defense. But even after his death, I felt that he was still here, in my thoughts, in my nightmares. I went to a psychologist to deal with the trauma. The doctor helped me understand and accept what happened. It was a long and difficult road, but I knew I had to go through it. Even years later, Sullivan's shadow haunted me. Every unfamiliar sound, every step in the dark reminded me of him. But I continued to live, trying not to let fear get the better of me. I found a new job, new friends, and gradually returned to a normal life. I knew that I would never forget what happened, but I also knew that I would not let it define my future. A few years passed, and life gradually returned to normal. But even in the happiest moments, the past haunted me. Every new call, every unfamiliar look made my heart beat faster. I knew Sullivan was dead, but his shadow still haunted me. One day, as I was leaving work, I noticed a man standing by my car. He was tall, with dark hair, and his gaze was directed directly at me. Goosebumps ran up my spine when I realized I didn't know who it was. The man walked up to me and said quietly, "We're not done yet, David." I immediately reported this to the police. They checked the area but found no evidence of the man's presence. I was offered temporary protection and advised not to be alone. Fear returned with new force. I began to see a stranger in every corner, in every reflection. My life turned into a nightmare again. I decided to go back to Jackson Riley, my private investigator. He checked all possible suspects, but could find no connection to Sullivan. However, he found one interesting detail. Someone was looking for information about me on the internet, trying to find my new place of residence. I decided to change my place of residence again and move to another city. There, I rented a small apartment and tried to remain inconspicuous. But even here, I could not shake the feeling that I was being watched. One evening, I was coming home and saw the same figure standing at my door. The man disappeared into the darkness as I approached. I was afraid to be alone, so I decided to spend the night in a hotel. At the hotel, I managed to relax a little, but not for long. In the night, I woke up to the sound of broken glass. Someone tried to break into my room. I grabbed my phone and called the police. The attacker fled, leaving behind only traces of blood. The police started an investigation again. They found some evidence, but nothing that would point to the identity of the attacker. I felt trapped, not knowing who was behind these attacks and what he wanted from me. In desperation, I decided to turn to an old friend, Detective Max Connor, whom I had not spoken to for a long time. He was one of the best investigators I knew. Max agreed to help and began his investigation. Max discovered that the man chasing me might be someone I knew in the past. He also suggested that the man may have been connected to Sullivan or his victims. This was a new thread, and we decided to investigate it further. I began to think back to everyone I knew at the time my father put Sullivan away. There were several people who might have had a motive for revenge, but none of them seemed like likely suspects. One day when I was walking down the street, a strange man approached me. He looked nervous and said he wanted to talk. We sat down in a cafe and he told me that he knew who was chasing me. His name was Michael Johnson, and he was the brother of one of Sullivan's victims. Michael said that his sister had been killed by Sullivan, and he blamed my father for not being able to protect her. After the death of my sister, he began to follow my family, trying to find a way to take revenge. Michael admitted that he was the one who had been stalking me for the past few months. He said he wanted me to feel the same fear and despair he felt after losing his sister. But now he understood that this would not bring his sister back and would not bring him peace. Michael apologized for everything he had done. He said he was ready to surrender to the police and accept punishment. I didn't know what to answer. I felt a mixture of anger, pity, and relief. We went to the police together. Michael surrendered and testified about all his actions. The police assured me that I was no longer in danger, but I knew that the scars of the past would remain with me forever. I went back to my new life trying to regain some normality. Although the fear was still with me, I knew I could handle it. I continued therapy and tried to live each day with hope for a better future. Over time, I began to make new friends and even fell in love with a girl named Laura. She was smart, kind, and understood me like no one else. Her support helped me overcome my fears and move forward. I learned that you can't let fear rule your life. The past was a part of me, but it did not determine my future. With Laura by my side, I felt like I could be happy again and live without constant fear. With Laura by my side, life became calmer. We found a small house on the outskirts of town where we felt safe. There, I felt real peace for the first time in a long time. One evening, while Laura and I were having dinner, there was a knock on the door. A feeling of anxiety quickly came over me. I went to the door and saw a man in black standing in the doorway. He was an ex-cop who had once worked on the Sullivan case. He said that there are new details in the case of Sullivan. It turned out that Sullivan had an accomplice who helped him carry out his crimes. This accomplice is still at large and probably knows about me. The policeman advised us to be very careful. Sullivan's accomplice might have believed that I had some information about their crimes, and that put me in danger again. Laura and I decided to act immediately. We reached out to Jackson Riley and Max Connor to come up with a defense plan together. They suggested we move to a secret location where we could be under their supervision. We moved to a small house in the woods. There we started a new life, hiding from a possible stalker. Laura was there and supported me, but the anxiety did not go away. Max and Jackson began searching for Sullivan's accomplice. They collected all possible evidence and information. It turned out that the accomplice could be one of Sullivan's former colleagues, who always remained in the shadows. One day, when I was coming home from a walk, I noticed tracks near the house. Someone was here watching us. I immediately informed Max and Jackson. They began surveillance of the territory. We decided to set up an ambush. Jackson and Max hid nearby and watched the house. After a few days, the accomplice appeared. He was careful, but did not notice our detectives. On the night when the accomplice tried to break into the house, Max and Jackson caught him. A short struggle ensued, but they managed to neutralize him. The accomplice was detained and handed over to the police. During interrogation, he confessed to his involvement in Sullivan's crimes. He also revealed that he planned to kill me to cover all tracks. It was confirmation that the danger was indeed real. After the arrest of the accomplice, we were still advised to remain under protection. The police continued their investigation to find all the connections between him and other possible co-conspirators. A few months passed, and the threat disappeared. Laura and I returned to our house. We had to go through many trials, but we felt that we could finally live in peace. I continued to attend therapy to deal with the constant fear and anxiety. Laura supported me every step of the way. Together, we overcame the consequences of the experienced nightmare. My relationship with Laura grew stronger. We have been through many trials together, and it has only made us closer. We started planning the future and thought about starting a family. But even in the happiest moments, the past sometimes reminded of itself. Every unfamiliar call, every outsider's glance could bring me back to those terrible events, but I knew I couldn't let it control my life. One evening, I received a letter. It read, "It's not over yet, David." Fear gripped me again. I didn't know if it was just someone's joke or a real threat. I showed the letter to Max and Jackson. They began a new investigation, trying to find the source of the threat. We didn't know who could be behind this letter, but we knew we couldn't ignore it. Max and Jackson decided to set a trap. They sent fake messages to lure the criminal to a meeting. The plan was risky, but we knew we had to try. The trap worked. The criminal appeared at the meeting place. It was another former colleague of Sullivan's who wanted to avenge his death. Jackson and Max were able to grab him again. After the arrest, police were able to link the man to other crimes related to Sullivan. He confessed his plans and said that he did not act alone. There were others who wanted to destroy me. The police continued their investigation, trying to find anyone who could be connected to this group. I found myself under protection again, but now I knew the threat was more serious than we had previously thought. One day, when I was at home alone, they came to me again. This time, it was a group of people trying to break into the house. I felt the same fear again as before, but I didn't let it paralyze me. I hid in a safe place that only Laura and I knew about. The police arrived quickly and neutralized the attackers, but it was a clear signal. The danger was still very real. I began to feel despair. Every time it seemed that everything was over, the threat returned. It seemed to me that I would never be able to live peacefully. Max and Jackson continued their investigation. They found more evidence to support the existence of a large group operating with Sullivan. It was a serious organization that would not stop until it achieved its goal. We decided to change tactics. Instead of constantly defending, we started to attack. Max and Jackson devised a plan to destroy this organization from within. Jackson managed to gain the trust of one of the group members. He began collecting information about their activities and passing it on to the police. It was a dangerous plan, but it could be the key to our victory. Thanks to information collected by Jackson, the police were able to expose several key figures in this organization. They started making arrests, and the group started to break up. But there were still some who were still at large. We knew they wouldn't stop until they got their way. We prepared for the final battle, knowing that this would be our last chance to stop them. One night they came again. This time we were ready. The police and our detectives were waiting for them. A fierce fight began, which lasted all night. But this time we won. After that night, most of the group members were arrested or destroyed. The police investigated all their connections and made sure that none of them could do any more harm. The threat is gone. Laura and I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. We returned to our house and started a new life, without fear and constant anxiety. I continued therapy to finally get rid of the consequences of what I experienced. Laura was there, and her support kept me going. We started planning our future with optimism. We are back to normal life. I found a new job, we started seeing friends and enjoying life. The past no longer defined our present. Laura and I started thinking about starting a family. It was a new step for us, and we felt we were ready for it. We knew that together we could overcome any difficulties. But even in the happiest moments, I did not forget about those who helped me in the struggle with the past. Max and Jackson have become real friends for me. We kept in touch and could always count on each other. From time to time, Laura and I remembered everything that we had to go through. These were difficult times, but they made us stronger and closer. We knew we could overcome any challenge now. The future looked bright. We planned trips, new adventures, and new beginnings. We felt like our lives were finally back on track. I learned that you can't let fear control your life. Every day was a new opportunity to be happy and live life to the fullest. I chose not to dwell on the past, but to move forward. Of course, life was not without problems. We faced new challenges, but now we knew how to deal with them. We were strong and ready for any difficulties. The support of friends and family was very important to us. We were not alone in our struggle. Our loved ones were always there, ready to help at any moment. I felt deeply grateful to everyone who helped us in difficult times. Without their support and help, we would not have been able to overcome all the challenges. Laura and I felt new feelings. It was not just love, but deep gratitude and respect for each other. We have become a real team, ready for any challenges. Our plans for the future became more and more concrete. We started building our house and thinking about children. These were new horizons that inspired and gave us strength. Every new day brought joy. We enjoyed simple things, walks, evenings at home, meetings with friends. Life became pleasant and interesting again. We began to realize our dreams, travels, new hobbies, new projects. All this made our life full and meaningful. We always supported each other. We overcame each new challenge together, and it made us stronger. We knew that together we could overcome any difficulties. I was grateful for everything we had. We went through many trials, but it only made us stronger and closer. We knew that now we can overcome any difficulties. Our life has become a new beginning. We left the past behind and began to build a new, happy, and peaceful life. We knew that new adventures and new challenges awaited us, but now we were ready for anything. Every day was a new opportunity to be happy and live life to the fullest. I chose not to dwell on the past, but to move forward. Of course, life was not without problems. We faced new challenges, but now we knew how to deal with them. We were strong and ready for any difficulties. The support of friends and family was very important to us. We were not alone in our struggle. Our loved ones were always there, ready to help at any moment. I felt deeply grateful to everyone who helped us in difficult times. Without their support and help, we would not have been able to overcome all the challenges. Laura and I felt new feelings. It was not just love, but deep gratitude and respect for each other. We have become a real team, ready for any challenges. Our plans for the future became more and more concrete. We started building our house and thinking about children. These were new horizons that inspired and gave us strength. Every new day brought joy. We enjoyed simple things, walks, evenings at home, meetings with friends. Life became pleasant and interesting again. We began to realize our dreams, travels, new hobbies, new projects. All this made our life full and meaningful. We always supported each other. We overcame each new challenge together, and it made us stronger. We knew that together we could overcome any difficulties. I was grateful for everything we had. We went through many trials, but it only made us stronger and closer. We knew that now we can overcome any difficulties. Our life has become a new beginning. We left the past behind and began to build a new, happy, and peaceful life. We knew that new adventures and new challenges awaited us, but now we were ready for everything. Every day was a new opportunity to be happy and live life to the fullest. I chose not to dwell on the past, but to move forward. Of course, life was not without problems. We faced new challenges, but now we knew how to deal with them. We were strong and ready for any difficulties. The support of friends and family was very important to us. We were not alone in our struggle. Our loved ones were always there, ready to help at any moment. I felt deeply grateful to everyone who helped us in difficult times. Without their support and help, we would not have been able to overcome all the challenges. Laura and I felt new feelings. It was not just love, but deep gratitude and respect for each other. We have become a real team, ready for any challenges. Our plans for the future became more and more concrete. We started building our house and thinking about children. These were new horizons that inspired and gave us strength. Every new day brought joy. We enjoyed simple things, walks, evenings at home, meetings with friends. Life became pleasant and interesting again. We began to realize our dreams, travels, new hobbies, new projects. All this made our life full and meaningful. We always supported each other. We overcame each new challenge together, and it made us stronger. We knew that together we could overcome any difficulties. I was grateful for everything we had. We went through many trials, but it only made us stronger and closer. We knew that now we can overcome any difficulties. Our life has become a new beginning. We left the past behind and began to build a new, happy, and peaceful life. We knew that new adventures and new challenges awaited us, but now we were ready for anything, and it made us stronger. We knew that together we could overcome any difficulties. I was grateful for everything we had. We went through many trials, but it only made us stronger and closer. We knew that now we can overcome any difficulties. Our life has become a new beginning. We left the past behind and began to build a new, happy, and peaceful life. We knew that new adventures and new challenges awaited us, but now we were ready for everything, and it made us stronger. We knew that together we could overcome any difficulties. I was grateful for everything we had. We went through many trials, but it only made us stronger and closer. We knew that now we can overcome any difficulties. Our life has become a new beginning. We left the past behind and began to build a new, happy, and peaceful life. We knew that new adventures and new challenges awaited us, but now we were ready for everything,